Good morning, it's May 5th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. I was still working in Washington, D.C. when the United States had its last balanced budget. Under President Bill Clinton and House Speaker Newt Gingrich, they were able to come together and make the hard decisions that led to not only a balanced budget, but an actual surplus for several years. They accomplished this by simultaneously raising revenue and cutting spending. And this is the formula for fiscal sanity, but I'm doubtful that the political leadership in this country has a stomach for what it takes. Clinton's balanced budget recipe was a mixture of higher revenues and lower spending with help from a booming economy. In his second term, he also negotiated a bipartisan budget deal with the Republicans. After campaigning on a pledge to cut the deficit, Clinton raised taxes on the wealthy during his first year in office. He increased certain taxes across the board, including higher top personal brackets, as well as adding 4.3 cents per gallon to the gas tax, and then eliminated a lot of itemized tax deductions. He also reduced defense spending, but I'm not sure that would be prudent in today's geopolitical world. These measures helped slash the overall deficit to 1.3% of GDP by the end of Clinton's first term. That's the smallest it had been in 22 years. The result was a surplus of $69 billion in 1998. That surplus peaked at $236 billion in 2000, but fell to $128 billion in 2001. But the point is, they were surpluses, meaning we're not adding to the national debt. The lessons can be learned from that time period are important. If Republicans are serious about balancing the budget and reducing the national debt, they'll have to make some uncomfortable choices. They will not get any help from Democrats who want the economic agenda of Trump and Republicans to fail and are unwilling to cut any spending. We've seen how they react when instances of waste, fraud, and abuse are discovered, and they call it a constitutional crisis. They go to court to block any of these cuts. But Republicans will have to face reality and increase revenue. I suggest they let the top rate go back to 39%, as it only affects taxable income for a married couple above $761,000. And at the same time, they've got to cut spending. On the spending side, so-called entitlements, mandatory programs such as Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits now account for almost 2/3 of the federal budget, compared with less than half when Clinton took office. Funding these programs is set by formula, making it difficult to change, and the population of Americans 65 or older, and I'm one of them, has grown by 32% since 1993, increasing demand for these entitlements. Defense spending takes up another large chunk of taxpayer dollars, greatly exceeding every other item in the so-called discretionary budget, which includes everything else from transportation, energy, to airline traffic control, and national parks. The U.S. currently spends 13% of the budget simply paying interest on the national debt. It's now the second largest item in the budget. This percentage keeps increasing, and the debt itself has soared from $4.5 trillion in '93 to almost $37 trillion today, mainly because of tax cuts that were made during previous administrations, the costly wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and vast public spending to address the 2008 financial crisis under Barack Obama and the COVID-19 pandemic spend under Biden. As the voters of this country, we have to finally acknowledge that we have a spending problem. It's exacerbated by the fact that we all like the benefits we get from the government, but say the government should cut other programs. Trump has sent an outline to what he would propose in the 2026 budget, and already members of Congress are squawking. The numbers are startling. It would suggest a $163 billion cut in non-defense discretionary spending. Some in Congress and the media portraying the administration's budget as a starvation diet. But non-defense discretionary spending has increased by 45% over the last 6 years, nearly twice as much as inflation. The budget's proposed cuts would hold spending flat. That's all it would do. The much-needed reforms include turning housing rental assistance programs into state block grants with 2-year eligibility caps for able-bodied adults to ensure that most of the money goes to the actual people that need it, the elderly and disabled. This budget would also cut a lot of programs that we may like, but we really don't need. Tens of billions of dollars of climate spending would be axed, ditto for more than a dozen small agencies, including the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Inter-American Foundation, and the U.S. Institute for Peace. The elephant in the budget the administration doesn't address, as I said, is entitlements. This so-called mandatory spending is projected to increase by $2.4 trillion over the next decade, and that's according to the Congressional Budget Office's latest baseline. That's more than 5 times as much as the increase in discretionary spending. It also assumes the 2017 reforms Bigger Child Tax Credit and Inflation Reduction Act, sweetened by Affordable Care Act subsidies, will expire this year. which seems unlikely. Mr. Trump has ruled out cuts to Medicare and Social Security, but mandatory spending also includes Medicaid, Obamacare subsidies, veterans benefits, food stamps, and other income security payments. There are bigger savings to be found in reforming such programs than discretionary spending accounts. That means every elected official has to start being honest with the public. We are now $37 trillion in debt, and it's growing each and every day. But Trump and every other politician are afraid to address, as I said, this elephant in the room, because the American public keeps crying about the debt, but those tears end when it comes to cutting something that benefits from them. It reminds me of Senator Russell Long, former Democrat and chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, when he said the public and his colleagues all say, "Don't cut him, don't cut me, cut that man behind the tree." The truth is, we need to reform our entitlement programs to slow down spending and simultaneously make budget cuts everywhere else, and we ask to increase revenue. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.